It was supposed to be a simple New Year's Eve celebration. Just close family, some laughter, a few glasses of champagne, and the usual countdown. But when my 6-year-old daughter Nancy was told to wait outside while everyone gathered for the New Year's toasts, something inside me snapped. We had been invited by my sister-in-law to celebrate with her family, as we had done for years. Nancy had been excited all week. She picked out a sparkly dress, insisted on helping set the table, and had been eagerly counting down the days. This was her New Year's too. But as the clock struck closer to midnight, my excitement turned to confusion, and then to heartbreak. "Mum, why do I have to wait outside?" Nancy asked, her voice quiet, almost as if she already knew the answer was going to hurt. I looked around the room, trying to process what had just been said. It was my husband's side of the family, and it was the first time I had ever felt so alienated at one of their gatherings. The request came from my sister-in-law, Emily, who had always been a bit of a perfectionist when it came to family matters. She made it clear that New Year's Eve was a special occasion, for family only, as she put it. I tried to explain to Nancy that she could join us after the toasts, but her eyes were filled with confusion and hurt. I could see the questions in her eyes. Why wasn't I family enough? Why couldn't I be a part of this special moment? Or, "You'll be fine, sweetie. Just wait here for a bit. Mum will be right back," I said, trying to mask the sadness in my voice. I made my way toward the group in the living room, but every step felt heavier than the last. My heart was with Nancy, who now stood by the door, waiting outside the circle of family that had just been drawn. But I didn't want to cause a scene. I didn't want to disrupt the evening. I told myself I would talk to Emily later, but in that moment, I felt so powerless. When I returned to the room after the toasts, I found Nancy sitting quietly on the stairs, her tiny hands folded neatly in her lap. She wasn't crying, she was too proud for that, but her face told me everything I needed to know. My stomach twisted in knots. "Nancy, honey, are you okay?" I asked, kneeling down beside her. She looked up at me, her small lips trembling. "I'm not allowed to be with the family, Mum. Is it because I'm not part of the family?" I felt the sting of her words cut deep. She was only 6 years old, but the weight of those questions was far beyond her years, and I had no answers for her, not any that would make sense. I could feel the tension building inside me. I had always known Emily could be distant, even a little exclusive at times, but this was beyond anything I had expected. How could she draw such a line between Nancy and the rest of the family? I had always considered myself part of that family, and for Nancy to be excluded like that, especially on a night as significant as New Year's Eve, was unacceptable. I made my way to the kitchen, where Emily was laughing with a few other relatives. I tried to calm myself before speaking to her. I didn't want to cause a scene, but I couldn't let this go. Not this time. "Emily," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "Can we talk?" Emily looked at me, her smile fading slightly. "Sure, what's up?" I could see that she hadn't expected this conversation, but I had to say it, and I had to say it now. "Why did you tell Nancy to wait outside for the toasts? She's just as much a part of this family as anyone else." Emily's face hardened slightly, and for a moment, I thought she might brush me off, but she didn't. "It's just tradition, you know. New Year's is for the adults. We wanted it to be special this year. It's not about Nancy, it's just that." "It's about what?" I interrupted, feeling my frustration rise. "You think Nancy doesn't deserve to be included just because she's young, because she's family too." Emily seemed taken aback by my outburst. "It's not like that," she said quickly. "We just wanted a moment for the adults to reconnect, you know? Family time." But there was no justification for it. Not in my eyes. My daughter had been cast aside in favor of maintaining some misguided version of family exclusivity. I couldn't stand the thought of Nancy feeling rejected for something as trivial as age. "I don't care about your traditions, Emily," I said, my voice shaking now. "What I care about is that my daughter was made to feel like she wasn't wanted, like she wasn't good enough. How is that fair? There was a long silence between us, and for a brief moment, I thought she might see my point. But instead, Emily just shrugged. It's not that big of a deal. It's just a few minutes, Sarah. But it was a big deal. To me, to Nancy, to our family. And what bothered me even more was the cold indifference she showed toward Nancy's feelings. Emily's words, while perhaps unintentionally hurtful, had pierced right through the surface of my own insecurities. It wasn't just about this night, it was about how my daughter would be treated for the years to come. As I left the conversation with Emily, I made a promise to myself and to Nancy. I would never let anyone, not even family, make her feel small again. She deserved respect, love, and a sense of belonging, especially from the people who were supposed to be there for her unconditionally. Back with Mency, I knelt down and hugged her tight. I'm so sorry, sweetie. You were right to feel upset, and I'll never let anyone make you feel like that again. You are an important part of this family, just like everyone else. Nancy's small arms wrapped around me tightly. I know, Mom. I just wanted to be with you all. I don't understand why they didn't want me there. In the days that followed, I tried to make sense of the events. I had thought about confronting Emily again, about telling her just how deeply this had hurt Nancy and me, but I was also hesitant. The holidays were supposed to bring people together, and I didn't want to start a family war over what seemed like a minor issue. But I couldn't shake the thought that this was just the beginning. What would happen in the years to come, when Nancy was older? Would she always be treated like an outsider in her own family? Eventually, I realized that I couldn't wait for Emily or anyone else to change. I had to be the one to show Nancy what true belonging looked like. I didn't want my daughter growing up thinking she had to fight for a seat at the table. I wanted her to know that she was valuable, not based on age or any other superficial criteria, but because of who she was. So, I made a decision. The next holiday gathering, we would spend it at home. Just the three of us. No more trying to fit into a family that didn't value us. We would create our own traditions, ones built on love, respect, and inclusion. The following weeks felt like a mixture of relief and uncertainty. I had taken the first step in asserting what was right for Nancy, but a part of me still feared the consequences of my actions. Would Emily and the rest of the family resent me for pulling back, for taking this stand? Would they see me as overreacting, as being too protective? But as the days went on, I realized that I had made the right choice. Nancy and I spent our time creating our own memories, and I saw a shift in her. She was more confident, more comfortable in her own skin. The uncertainty that had crept into her voice during those early moments of exclusion had disappeared, replaced by a sense of pride in who she was. I knew the time would come when we would have to face the rest of the family. I couldn't avoid them forever, and despite everything that had happened, they were still Nancy's family. But I wasn't going to back down. This wasn't about a single event, it was about setting boundaries for the future. As Christmas approached, I prepared myself for another family gathering. I had been avoiding Emily's calls, unsure of what to say or how to fix the rift. I didn't want to seem like I was holding a grudge, but at the same time, I couldn't just sweep the situation under the rug. Then, one evening, Emily reached out again. Sarah, her voice was softer this time, hesitant. I want to apologize for how I acted. I shouldn't have excluded Nancy, and I know it hurt both of you. I was taken aback. The apology was unexpected, and it took everything in me not to jump into the conversation with both barrels. I took a deep breath. I appreciate your apology, Emily, I said, my voice steady. But it's not just about this one night. It's about how Nancy was treated like she wasn't part of the family. That's not something I can just forget. Emily was quiet for a long time, and I could hear the weight of what I said settle between us. I wasn't sure what to expect from her, whether she'd truly change or if it was just another attempt to smooth things over. But when she finally spoke again, her voice was different. I understand, she said quietly. I was wrong, Sarah. I've been so caught up in tradition and what I think is proper, that I didn't stop to think about how my actions would affect you and Nancy. I've been selfish, and for that, I'm truly sorry. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was real. And in that moment, I knew that while this wasn't the end of the road, it was a step toward healing. Nancy would never be sidelined again, not in my presence. That Christmas, we had our own celebration at home. Just Nancy, my husband, and I. It was simple but perfect. We cooked together, shared stories, and laughed without any tension hanging over us. Nancy, who had once felt out of place in the midst of the holiday chaos, was now surrounded by the love and comfort of her own family. It felt like a fresh start. The phone call from Emily had been the first sign of reconciliation, but I wasn't ready to just rush back into the family fold. I needed time to process everything, and so did Nancy. I wanted her to understand that family wasn't about rules and exclusion. It was about unconditional love, support, and inclusion, and that was something we could give her, no matter what. New Year's Eve rolled around again, and this time, I felt a quiet confidence in myself. I wasn't going to repeat the same mistakes I had made in the past. We had our own way of celebrating now, and it was beautiful in its simplicity. The day felt like a symbolic fresh start, a chance to let go of all the hurt and create something new. Emily reached out again, this time with a more formal invitation to the New Year's Eve dinner. She said the right things, apologizing once more and extending a genuine invitation. But I could feel it. This time, I wasn't going into it blindly. I wanted to ensure that the love and respect we were now building in our home wasn't just a temporary fix, but a permanent foundation. I spoke with my husband about it, and together, we decided it was time to try again, but we would go on our terms. When Emily reached out again, it was not just an apology, but an offer to fix things. She asked to meet, and despite everything, I agreed. I knew that if anything were to change, we needed to have an honest conversation, without the defensiveness and old wounds that had been lingering. We sat in a small coffee shop, just the two of us. The familiar discomfort was there, but so was something new, an understanding that we both wanted to move past this. Emily looked tired, worn, and different from the confident, sometimes aloof woman I had known. She apologized again, this time with sincerity in her eyes. She didn't make excuses, didn't try to deflect blame. She simply acknowledged how wrong she had been. I didn't realize how much it would hurt you and Nancy, Emily said softly, her voice low. I was so caught up in my own expectations, I forgot to see you as family. I'm really sorry for what I did. I could see the regret, but the question remained, would it be enough to mend the rift that had formed between us? I appreciate you saying that, Emily, I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. But it's not just about the toasts or one night. It's about the years of feeling like I didn't belong, like I was never good enough. It hurt, especially when you excluded Nancy. Emily nodded, taking in my words. She was quiet for a moment, processing what I had said. I didn't realize how much it affected you, Sarah. I thought I was just following traditions, but now I see how wrong I was. For the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe there was a way forward. Maybe this conversation, this willingness to listen, could be the beginning of something new. But deep down, I knew it would take time. Trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. How do we move forward from here? I asked. How do we rebuild from what's been broken? Emily took a deep breath and looked me in the eye. I think it starts with understanding, with me accepting the impact of my actions, and with making sure that both you and Nancy feel valued in this family. I can't change the past, but I can do better going forward. Her words were hopeful, but I still felt cautious. Trust was fragile. I wasn't sure I could fully open my heart to her again, but I also knew that holding on to bitterness would only prevent healing. We'll see, I said, my voice softer now. Actions speak louder than words, Emily. It's going to take time for me to trust again, but I'm willing to try, for Nancy's sake. Over the next few weeks, things began to shift. Emily took small steps to make amends, inviting us over for casual family dinners and including Nancy in every part of the evening, not just the adult conversations. She made an effort to show that Nancy was important, that she belonged. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Nancy was still hesitant around her aunt, unsure of where she stood after everything that had happened. But slowly, the ice began to melt. She laughed and played with her cousins, her innocence slowly overcoming the hurt she had felt. Seeing her happy again made every difficult conversation worth it. But even as things improved with Emily, I couldn't forget how deeply hurt I had felt. The anger still lingered, even as the surface seemed calm. Emily and I began to have deeper talks about family values and what it meant to truly support each other. She confessed that part of her actions had been driven by jealousy, by the desire to control the narrative of the family. She wanted things to go according to her plans, and in the process, she had lost sight of the most important thing: love and inclusion. I was so focused on tradition, Emily admitted, that I didn't see the bigger picture. I didn't see how much I was pushing you and Nancy away. I'm sorry for that, and I'll work every day to make it right. It was a step forward, but I knew it wasn't enough to erase the hurt. We both knew that rebuilding trust would take time, but it felt like the first real step toward healing. The following holidays were quieter, but the peace we had worked so hard for was finally starting to take root. It wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation. There were awkward silences, strained moments, and times when I questioned whether things would ever truly be the same. But we had found something, an understanding that had been lacking for so long. Nancy was thriving. She had learned a valuable lesson in the midst of all the confusion, that she was worthy of love and respect no matter what. And I, as her mother, would always be her protector. No one would ever make her feel like an outsider again. The family dynamic had shifted, but we were forging a new path, one that included every voice and every heart. Months later, as New Year's Eve approached again, I found myself reflecting on how far we had come. Emily had invited us to her home for the celebration, and this time I felt ready. Not because everything had been fixed, but because I had learned the importance of standing firm, of setting boundaries that kept my family safe. I dressed Nancy in a beautiful red dress, one she had picked out herself, and as we walked into Emily's house, I could see that things were different. The air was lighter, less tense. Emily greeted us warmly, genuinely happy to see us. But most importantly, she acknowledged Nancy. "You look beautiful, sweetie," Emily said to her niece, bending down to give her a hug. "I'm so glad you're here." Nancy's face lit up with a smile. "Thanks, Aunt Emily." And just like that, it felt like the past was finally being put to rest. The hurt wasn't gone, but the love was returning. Slowly, but surely. The evening unfolded without incident. We laughed, we shared stories, and we celebrated the start of a new year. Nancy danced with her cousins, her laughter ringing through the room, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. I had fought so hard for this moment, to see my daughter surrounded by love, to see her accepted and cherished by the family that had once turned their backs on her. At midnight, as we all raised our glasses for the toast, I watched Nancy carefully, making sure she felt included. When the countdown finished, she turned to me with wide eyes and said, "Mum, I feel happy." And in that moment, I knew we had made it. We had found our place. The year that followed was one of growth for our family. While Emily and I still had our differences, there was a mutual respect that hadn't existed before. We both understood the importance of putting family first, and that meant making the effort to show love, not just with words, but with actions. Nancy continued to flourish, and though she had learned hard lessons about family dynamics, she carried herself with confidence. I was proud of the young girl she was becoming, and every day, I promised myself that I would protect her from any more pain. Eventually, Emily and I sat down once more to talk about the past, about what had happened, and where we stood now. She admitted that she had been so focused on control and expectations that she had lost sight of the love and connection that should have been the foundation of our family. "I want things to be different now," she said, her voice sincere. For both of us, for Nancy, and for the first time, I believed her. The journey wasn't over. Rebuilding a family isn't something that happens overnight. For the first time in years, I felt like we were on the right path. It wasn't perfect, and there would be challenges ahead, but we were ready to face them together. And as I looked at Nancy, I knew one thing for sure. She would never feel excluded again. She was, and always would be, a vital part of this family.